Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome to the stream. We'll wait a few minutes. Hey, Lark. Hi, Patty. Nice to see you. As it were. We'll wait a few minutes for folks to get in and get settled and whatnot. Please take the time to get yourself comfy, get yourself cozy. I will repeat myself a few times on that. Pour a glass of something nice for yourself if you like. Light a candle, light some incense, get out your seasonal spray. And get settled in. I have a little bit of an announcement about this series going forward, and we will see what that's all about in a few minutes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to everyone who is arriving. Thank you for joining us. I'm having some cucumber and lemon water with a little cherry in the bottom because we need to keep it sweet these days. Hi, Shannon. Come on in. Like I said, we'll start in a few minutes. Get yourself comfy, get yourself cozy, grab a glass of something, light a candle, light some incense, make it nice. Hi, Eva. Yay. I'll probably repeat this again. But hi, everybody coming in. Come on in, make yourselves at home. Say hi in the chat if you want. Give this video a like. I keep forgetting to do all of the like. It's a YouTube advertisement moment. So give this video a like. Please subscribe to my channel. Turn on notifications. Okay, that's enough of that. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is so awesome. Yay. I'm so glad. I've really actually been missing my classes in the last couple of weeks and like missing the actual live physical in-person classes. So hi everyone, as I'm just staring at my laptop. I'm imagining you all here with me. What a wild world. What a wild world. Oh my gosh. Okay. So before we begin, if there's any kind of an announcement, I guess, that I need to make, it is that at this time I'm planning to continue to teach the Wheel of the Year classes the way that I have been, which is like live streams and free pay what you can donation, etc., etc. But this tarot series, I think I may take offline and have it be more private, and have it be for people who subscribe to my Patreon or what have you. But they will probably be unlisted in the future. But we'll see how all of that works out. Nothing is set in stone because everything is crazy right now. Thank you so much for joining us. Come on in, make yourself at home, light some incense, pour a glass of something nice for yourself if you like, and we will get class started momentarily. Today we are talking about the tarot card, the Empress, and cards related to the Empress. And these are all cards that we can work with now at Beltane season, this last half of the spring season, as well as any time of the year that we need to be sort of summoning up the energies and the archetypes that we're going to talk about in these cards, in the Empress in particular, and then other cards related to them. All right, it's 5 after. It's close enough. If you're not here by now, you're late. Okay. All right. The Empress. What a babe, right? Regardless of gender, the Empress is an absolute babe. Here I go with graphics, people. Come on. It's high tech. It's high tech. We've moved into the high tech now. This is the future. This is what it smells like. Okay. The Empress. This is her. So let's first and foremost talk about why we might want to work with this card at this time of year. Why the Empress? Well, the Empress is related to the planet Venus, and Venus is the ruling planet of the sign Taurus. And for Western astrology folks, for tropical astrology folks, that's traditionally the type of astrology that we practice here in the West. It's Taurus season. Taurus is the sign that the sun is moving through, and it really lends a lot of its vibes and its feels and its aesthetic to the season of Beltane and to this last half of spring. This is very much Taurus season, and the planet sort of ruling over that, or really having a lot of influence over that, is Venus. And in some systems that relate astrology to tarot, the Empress is connected to the planet Venus. And we see that right here on their shield. We actually have this really incredible symbol right here on their shield that is the woman sign, or the femme sign. And that is usually the sign that is connected to the planet of Venus. So we have that symbol right there on the card. Okay, so this character contains a lot of symbolism. This is one of those archetypal figures in the tarot that is just really, really packed with a lot of symbolism. And the symbols for us are really indicative of the type of power that they are able to manifest and how they are intending to use that power. And I guess in some regards, I think of some of these symbols as being like ways that we might be relating to that power or even embodying that power. Okay, so I'm going to bounce back. I'm probably going to have card up more than me in this one because we're actually looking at stuff. Okay, so what we are looking at currently is the Empress card, obviously, but this is by the artist Pamela Coleman Smith from the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. This is also now named the Pamela Coleman Smith Waite Tarot deck, or the Smith-Waite Tarot deck. Pamela Coleman Smith is or was the original illustrator of these cards. Before this artist got a hold of the idea to illustrate a tarot deck, the major arcana of the tarot had been illustrated, but for the most part, the minor arcana had not. And so a lot of these illustrations are directly from Pamela Coleman Smith's imagination and her interpretation, or their interpretation, of these magical concepts into an illustrated form. So thank you, magical ancestor, for creating this wildly potent collection of images for us to work with. Okay, so the Empress is, in shorthand, the embodiment of pretty much all of the archetypes that we might connect to the concepts of things like Mother Earth, terra firma, mater materia, the body of the planet itself, as well as any kind of sentience that might be connected to that concept of the earth and the earth as a mother. The Empress is often referred to as the physical mother of the soul, as a name for, as we move through the pathway of the Fool, the Fool's journey, as we move through the major arcana of the tarot. The Empress and the Emperor are referred to as the mother and the father of the physical soul. And we don't want to get too bogged down in gender stuff, because any person, in my opinion, has the capacity to manifest the characters and the archetype, the character and the personality and the skill sets, for better and worse, of all of the archetypes. And so the Empress really represents that thing that is in all of us, that is fecund, that is ripe and ready and fertile and waiting for a really cool project and a really awesome thing to happen. It is that thing that's in all of us that is like, plant a seed in me. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. And all of us have something like that in us. It's a part of how we get stuff done in the world, is we create a place where we're going to get stuff done. And then, we kind of like get in touch with our willpower and make the thing go. And so this character, this archetype, represents that energy that's in all of us. Okay. We have a lot of indications of magical symbolism, and really potent connections to other powerful archetypes on this card. First and foremost for me, of course, is that shield with the Venus symbol on it, or the woman symbol. So that's connecting to the planet Venus. That's pretty potent. The robe that this person is wearing is covered in pomegranates, and they are pomegranates drawn like roses. The pomegranate, of course, connects us back to incredibly powerful goddesses from all over the Mediterranean and the Middle Eastern world and Northern Africa. Persephone, of course, being probably the easiest one to come to mind for a lot of witches and pagans. And, of course, Persephone has just come back from her underworld journey that she goes through, all from Samhain through winter and into spring. When she comes back is when spring comes back and life comes back to the world. That's the deal. And so she's dressed very much like Persephone in this card, covered in this white robe that is, decorated with all of these pomegranates. And they're drawn kind of like roses. They're not. It's not just a round pomegranate fruit. You can see there's a little stem and two leaves underneath it, and so we have a connection symbolically to all of the different roses that we see in tarot, and really this sense of like, through my woman power, or we don't want to be trapped in the ideas of gender. So through my power to be fecund, is where I radiate my passion, where I radiate my essence and my desire and my thing that I yearn for. Another character that we see in the tarot that is heavily associated with pomegranates, of course, would be the High Priestess. And I don't have any illustrations of that character for you today. Sorry, I was putting these slides together. It's kind of the last minute. But if you're working with your tarot deck, pull out the High Priestess card and see if whoever it was that illustrated that deck created any kind of visual correlation between the High Priestess and the Empress. Are there any symbols that are the same between those two cards? Are they sharing anything? But in the Rider-Waite deck, or the Pamela Coleman-Smith Waite deck, we see a veil behind the High Priestess that is decorated with pomegranates. And so now we have another character one card later who's literally wearing it. It's like she took the veil down and I was like, that is some great drag right there, honestly. Like, I'm taking down the curtains and I'm turning it into a house robe. So thank you very much. We love that. But, so she's got that connection to the High Priestess as well. The High Priestess and Persephone both are archetypes that speak to going into some spooky places, going into the unknown, going into some trials and some tough places, and being able to use our natural organic magic that we are naturally born with, to make our way through those trials and those efforts. So here again, we have a message from this character that connects us to these archetypal figures. And then some other really important stuff that we see in this card. For me, probably the next two most important things would be the cypresses or the evergreens that are growing in the background of this card, as well as the grain that is growing all across the bottom of the card. Both of these symbols connect the card profoundly and deeply to some of the great goddesses that we see in the Western world, and really kind of the Southern and the Eastern worlds as well. There are grain goddesses all over the planet, and so that grain connects this Empress character to all of those grain goddesses and grain agricultural femme archetypes from all over the world. And so again, we have a real deep insistence of this Mother Earth idea, this producer idea, this the terra firma upon which all the other stuff happens, but also really is coming from. But there's also another symbol, or another interpretation of the grain that we see in this card, which is that I am a producer, as in I can get things done. I amount to result. I amount to product. One of the part of the reason why this symbol is so potent is when we look back through time at various goddesses that have been depicted with stuff, shields, bells, different animals, different items in their hands. There is a long lineage of goddesses depicted with stuff in their hands, particularly like grapes and grains, or apples and grains, or something and grains. And the idea is I come bearing these treasures for you, these gifts. I contain within me the knowledge of cereal crops, which means bread and beer. And a bunch of other stuff that's going to keep you and all your people alive. When we look back through time at anthropology and archaeology from different portions of the world, when we see the science of grain and growing cereal crops really become something that humans begin to apply themselves to, we see a shift in those civilizations every time to something where there's this big jump in growth, there's this big jump in development, there's this big jump in expansion, like the population bumps up, but there's a bunch of discoveries and invention and all of that stuff. And so it's kind of like grain cereal sort of kickstarts a lot of these civilizations, or helps them get to the next level of development and advancement, to better or worse, right? Like, we certainly don't want to just arbitrarily praise all progress and evolution and advancement of the species, because we don't get it right all the time. I don't have to go into that. But what she is showing us here, what this archetype is showing us in this card, is I can produce. I can keep you fed. I'm here with boobies full of milk and fields full of grain, and I am a provider and a producer. So this idea of the grain is really connecting this archetype back to all of these massive archetypes that humans have been working with for a really long time, of like, I am connected to this stuff and I am one of them. I am one of these archetypes, one of these beings that produces, that provides, that can give you what you need, your nourishment, your succor, your good stuff to keep you going. Okay. And so a couple of other potent symbols in this card. These evergreens that are in the background. Now, the evergreens also connect this archetype to a bunch of really old goddesses that have been doing stuff for a long ass time, but it also connects this archetype to the consorts of a lot of those goddesses. And I love that there is this connection. There are plenty of goddesses that are connected directly to evergreens, but there's a whole bunch of goddesses whose consorts are connected to evergreens. And so the one that I think of the most strongly is Campbell, or Sybil. Her name is pronounced both ways. Who was a goddess that was worshipped in Rome and Greece, but based on a goddess from Anatolia that's somewhere between 8 and 10,000 years old. And her consort was Attis, Attis, Attis is an ever youthful vegetation deity that dies and is resurrected here at springtime, crucified on an evergreen. I don't know if any of these symbols sound vaguely familiar to you guys. I don't know if you're like into myths or whatever, but stuff. Haha. And so she's showing us, or this archetype is showing us also in the background of this card, I relate to those characters too. It's not just me showing up as the provider. I'm also hanging out with all of these other characters, these other archetypes that are known for their vegetation connection, that are known for their ability to produce and their ability to regenerate the land and like stop and restart the cycle. And so to wind us back a little bit, that is what is happening here in the spring portion of the Wheel of the Year for pagans and heathens and witches and everybody else too, but you don't have to make a holiday out of it if you don't want to. If you don't like bonfires and get naked in the woods, whatever, that's fine. We'll do it for you. More room for me in the wheat fields. But this character is saying, I am related to all of these things. I am a producer myself, and I hang out with other producers. And between all of us, we've got you covered. And so like I was saying, here in this portion of the Wheel of the Year, this is springtime. And springtime is thought of as the beginning of the new energetic cycle. In our Western world, we sometimes think of the beginning of the energetic cycle as January 1st. That's when the calendar starts, right? So that's the beginning of the cycle. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. In many ways, these start ideas are completely arbitrary. Just pick one. Just pick a cycle and go through it and see what happens. But for a lot of pagans, the energetic cycle starts at spring. And so we use all of winter to kind of let go of the old cycle and empty stuff out and get rid of things and work on our, inner world issues and stuff like that. And then when spring shows up, it's like, okay, the heat is going to come back. The light is going to come back. Things are going to start growing and doing again. So I need to wrap up this inner world journey trip that I'm on and get ready for the outer world journey and the outer world trip. And so the first portion of that is Ostara. That's the first 6-ish weeks of spring. And now we are into the second 6-ish, it's actually 8 weeks of spring, and that is called Beltane season. And so that's what this character is overseeing, is that we're returning to the physical plane, we're returning to our physical bodies, and we're returning to the physical world wherein we're going to produce things and make stuff happen. Okay. One character, I'll pause, and this isn't the best environment for this, and this is part of why I'm going to change stuff up a little bit in the next month or so. But does anybody have any questions about that so far? There's a little bit of a lag, so I'm going to wait maybe 30 seconds or so, or I'll just whatever. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Venus, production, pretty much all vegetation goddesses, and in the background, pretty much all the vegetation gods are kind of implied in this card or connected in this card. No questions? All right, moving on. Okay. Now, one of the goddesses that this character is connected to very strongly is the Egyptian goddess Hathor, Hathor, Hathor. She was depicted as a sacred cow. She had gigantic horns on her head, and the sun sat directly in the horns. No big deal there, right? Pretty casual. Just carrying the sun in my horns. You're welcome. Hi. I guess I'll go ahead and fold this laundry too while I'm here. So it was a giant sun disk, and it had a cobra or a serpent coming out of it, the urea. And she relates back to the first dynasty of Egypt, but most archaeologists believe that she's pre-Egyptian, so that this is a goddess that existed in this part of the world, in Central Africa, Northern Africa, before the Egyptians were a concept. And she is a sky goddess, but she is also an earth goddess. So she kind of stretches between both of these worlds. And that image is really important. And she has a mother-son relationship with the Egyptian deity Horus, who comes along later. But he literally lives inside of her, both as a concept and as an actual entity that she carries around. So this is kind of a big part of the beginning of that imagery that we ultimately see depicted in characters like, or archetypes like the Virgin Mary, of the mother with the son on their lap. We see several thousand years after Hathor was conceptualized or presented herself to humans, however you'd like to conceptualize that, we see Isis sitting there with Horus on her lap, kicking it. And then, 2,000 years after that, we see the Virgin Mary sitting there with Jesus on her lap. So it's a gig. Moms have been doing that for a minute. So this is... she has a bunch of other stuff absorbed into her, and then she ultimately was absorbed into other characters. But she is also known as Mehet Weret. That's probably not the correct pronunciation. Mehetweret, whose name means Great Flood. And this was a character that did it all. She did everything. Her 4 legs were the 4 pillars of the world, and the world was more or less carried on her back. And she was, day and night. She was the earth and the sky, and this massive producer and protector character. She's connected to the Egyptian goddess Bat, B-A-T, and she's often referred to as the Lady of the Marshes or the Lady of the Sycamore Trees. She's associated with the Milky Way, and really was kind of, like I said, this construct that existed as like, I am reality. And that is a very important baseline to understand, that this archetype is the reality upon which everything else is happening. And in the West, a lot of us are very, very removed from the earth. A lot of us are like, we're not in contact with the planet on a very regular basis. We live in our building where our apartment is. We drive in our cars. And we don't have to deal with the earth very often. Somebody else is doing that for us, or it's been done for us. And now we're living in these nice cities. We don't even have to walk on dirt roads or drive on dirt roads. Everything is paved over and covered over. And it might feel like we have tamed this character in some way. And I assure you that we have not. And it's an easy thing to make this assumption about the Empress character as an archetype. And it's an easy thing to make this assumption about Mother Earth as an archetype, is that when we're saying this is this fecund template, this fecund blank canvas upon which things will act, right? It's this fertile ground waiting for something. There's an implication of passivity there. There's an implication that, and it comes so much from what we have been taught about what femininity is and what womanness is that you sit there and you wait until you're told what to do. You'll be told where you can help, but you'll not be a leader. And it's easy, I think, to kind of fall into the pitfall or into the trap a little bit of relating those types of really de-evolved concepts with this idea of active fertility. And that I'm just ground waiting, fallow, until someone activates me. But in fact, fertility is an active state. And to step into the power roles of what this character can present is not a passive state, but an active state of yearning, an active state of drawing other things out of themselves toward this place where we can be fertile and do the thing. And it's an active state in that once the act has happened, now everything else occurs. And so, to be very frank and mundane with that, there could be the assumption that let's look at the sex act, that the human life is created at the moment of ejaculation. Like, that was the whole point. Without the ejaculation, nothing happens, and this woman has just been waiting here to be the host for a baby, and now something magical is happening, when in fact everything that has happened with this person has been the active event of preparing and becoming fertile. And then, after that moment of ejaculation, you have at the very least 9 months of activity of now this fertile ground, this host, the mother, creating the baby, growing the baby, doing everything that comes after that. And then, as it happens a lot in the West, the next 20 years of raising that kid too. So I don't want to get too far afield with this, but there can be a mistake made here in interpreting this card or interpreting this archetype as being passive and just laying back and waiting. And in fact, we're talking about entities, or that this card relates to entities that, while on the surface it seemed like there might not be much action, underground the worms are creating compost, and the roots are creeping through and making stuff happen, and the seed is germinating, and the project is occurring, the thing is happening. Okay. So coming back to a little bit more symbolism on this card. Do I want to? Actually, yes. Okay. So some of the other stuff that this character is wearing, and then we'll move on to look at a couple of other cards here. Some of the other things that this character is wearing. They are wearing a pearl necklace. I'll allow you to enjoy a joke there if you like. I'll wait. Okay. And on this pearl necklace, it kind of is hard to see, but you can count. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, there's only 7. It's the 7 ancient planets of yore. And so there's this idea that, like, this character is in alignment with the other celestial bodies. It's in alignment and sort of like on the same page as some of the other planets in the system and their agendas. And that's important. That's an important piece. It's little, but it's important. Yeah, teehee. Yeah, exactly. And then they're wearing this crown of stars. And there are 12 stars altogether on this crown, and that refers to the 12 signs of the zodiac. It also refers to the 12 months of the year, which at one point were the same thing. And so between this necklace and this crown, there is a sense of time and a sense of cycle, a sense of repetition and rhythm. So what we're being shown with that symbol is that this is an archetype that understands the rhythms of nature. They understand the timeline and the time cycles of nature and how things are going to go about. And that is really important in and of itself. It's important, but it's also important to, when we're thinking in the face of that idea of that passivity, or like this person doesn't seem to be doing anything. They seem to just be sitting there and lounging about. And yet they're actually, oh wait, there we go. Sorry. They're actually quite aware of rhythm. They're quite aware of cycle and repetition. And so there's also this sense of like, I'm doing things in my time, and I'm doing things at the time it's supposed to happen, not when you want it to happen necessarily, but when it's supposed to happen. And then another important symbol that we see in this card is the little baton that they're holding. And this is drawn a couple of different ways, even on different Rider-Waite decks. In terms of the actual handle, it's sort of hard to see, but it's woven. And it kind of looks like the top of a grain, like a shaft of grain. But then this globe at the top in all gold, and this wand is to be interpreted as all gold. This idea of, I've taken all of my willpower, and I've taken all of my drive in the world, and I've honed it into this, into gold, and I've honed it into this baton that I am able to sort of have the whole world in my hands. But it's not this big, giant, ostentatious, I've got to swing this around and impress everybody with it. It's just my simple little wand letting you know I'm in charge and that I know what the hell's going on. But that's all. It's pretty chill after that. And it's golden because this person, this is also indicated by the whiteness of their robe, and I'll talk about that in just a second. The purity in their motivation and the purity in their ultimate drive. Like when this character is acting in its best, most evolved behavior and mindset, it's acting from this very pure place. Now, let's have a side note and talk about whiteness being equal to purity, because no. However, that is the symbolism that we're working with in this deck. So if there are any tarot illustrators out there, I challenge you, if you work with color in your decks, to find other ways to indicate purity beside using the color white. But we could also very easily say that this robe is translucent. We could say that color that we see is not white, but it is a lack of color. We could say that this is like a translucent robe with this like embroidery pattern of pomegranates, which now I totally want. So if there are any seamstresses out there, please make this robe for me, please, because that would be really, really cool. I'm kind of into that a lot. Okay. But we can also look at it that way. And again, that's very true to the spirit of this character. They are very naked. They're very plain. They're not piled on with dope, crazy amounts of adornment or anything. They just got enough to sort of show you, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. Okay. So, we have really dived into the particulars of a lot of the symbolism on this card. I'm just kind of giving it a once over. And now I want to move to another version of this card. And again, if anybody's got any questions, please jump into the chat and say something. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rambling on. Okay. So this is the Empress card from the Builders of the Adytum deck. Adytum. Adytum. This is a hermetic magical order, very influenced by Rosicrucian work, Freemason, Knights Templar type stuff, but also not that. And I really appreciate the subtle changes that they have made to a lot of the tarot cards, so I really like to work with it as well. And I'll kind of flick back and forth here a little bit. Here's what we would think of as the traditional Empress card, and then here is their slight alteration to it. Okay, so let's get into it. This is the Empress from the Builders of the Adytum, and we have a little bit more overt symbolism here. So we still have a person in a big flowing robe. We still have a person sitting on a bench. We still have grains on the ground at the bottom of the card. Cypresses or some type of evergreen in the background of the card. In fact, we still have the river. We even still have a shield, a star crown, a basic wand with a globe at the top. A lot of similarities. So this is also a symbol or a signal to us who are learning how to relate to this card. maybe these are symbols that I should do some extra investigation around, because it seems like maybe they show up a lot. So we've talked about the symbols. I want to talk about the symbols that are different in this card versus the symbols that are the same. So the symbols that are different. One, we have this symbol on the shield. The shield in the quote-unquote traditional high priestess, shaped like a heart, but with the Venus symbol. And now we have shaped like a heart, but with a pot of some type and these wings. This design definitely speaks to Greek myth. It speaks to Hindu myth. And I interpret this as the pot of Amrita, or the pot of immortal life that we see in Hindu myth. But this is also could be the flaming heart of Christ. This is really this sacred vessel within which magical stuff is going to happen. Obviously, that is a really great interpretation for a womb. If you are a person that happens to have a uterus, whether you decide to create a flesh baby in there or not, that is a type of sacred vessel. But you don't have to have a womb or a uterus to have a sacred vessel in you. You can develop one. And so this is a character that is really potent in terms of deciding that we have a sacred place within us wherein magical stuff can happen, right? Back to that fertile ground, or that fecund field that's waiting for the seed. Same idea. Okay. What else do we see on this character that is a little bit different, but kind of the same, but a little bit different? Well, let's look at their feet. They're now standing on a crescent moon. And this is something that we see in the Rider-Waite deck, or the Smith-Waite deck, as a part of the High Priestess illustration. She is often standing on a crescent moon, but now it's this character standing on the crescent moon, relating back to the same thing. I am the sacred vessel. I am the sacred container. I wax and wane. My rhythms are cyclical. So we're getting all of that same symbolism, but through that same meaning, that same interpretation, but through this symbol of the moon under her feet. Connecting to gynecological stuff, the rhythm of menses. But again, it's not always about gender. This is that thing that's in all humans that is fecund, that is yearning, that is ready to be a sacred vessel for and to grow another thing. And then we see on their chest, where in the Rider-Waite, it's just a plain robe. On this character, they actually have this like triangle shape on their chest. And in the Builders of the Aditum deck, triangle shapes, this 1 point up shape in particular, relates to fire. And where we have kind of the implication of roses with the pomegranate illustration on the robe here, we're seeing that same idea translated through with this 1 point up isosceles triangle. That is the fire. So she is passionate about this. She may not show it really strongly, right? It's a tiny little triangle. It's just a little bit of fire. But she's saying very close to my heart. I am acting from a place of quote unquote purity of motivation, meaning my actions are very close to spirit, or they're very close to, they're very in alignment with my higher self, or the higher portions of my soul, or all of that good stuff. But I am acting from a place of passion. I am emotional about this. My willpower is fired up about this. I care. I'm into it. Let's do it. Even if I seem really relaxed on the outside, I am actually fully invested. And then after that, very, very similar symbolism. 12 stars on the crown, 7 pearls on the necklace, etc., etc. Okay, so let's look at a couple of other depictions. This is the Empress card from, let me see if I can remember or find where this is from. I had it written down and now I forget. Okay, anyways, we'll get back to that. So in this particular Empress card, We are seeing a person who is very relaxed, very laid back. Interesting note to their headpiece. To me, it kind of looks like the headpiece that a samurai might wear, but it also really reminds me of a pharaoh's cap. And Hathor, our bull goddess that we were talking about a bit ago, was thought of as the symbolic mother of all pharaohs. So we get a little bit of that implication here. And we get a little bit of that connection also with the scales. Oh, no, no, no. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm talking about. The planet Venus, which we know that the Empress card is connected to, connects to the sign of Taurus. It is the ruling sign of Taurus, but it is also the ruling sign of Libra, and that is depicted by the scales. So there is that subtle connection here in this depiction of the card. But we are seeing somebody who's really relaxed, really laid back, really lounging. They have the whip and the crook also in this card. I forgot about that with this particular Empress. There's flowing water in the background, blue skies, fertile land. She's surrounded by lots of fruits and veg and all this beautiful stuff. And so again, there's this real sense of relaxation and ease and all of that good stuff with this character. Here is another depiction, and this is Die Kaiserin, which is the German word for empress. You're saying the Kaiser, basically, aka the Caesar. So this would be the Caesarin, the empress. And this is Tarot of the Old Path, is the deck that this is from. Let's see. I'm like obsessed with finding the other, because this is how I am about stuff. Okay. This card, if you're loving it, this is from the World Spirit Tarot. The whole deck is illustrated like this. It's really, really beautiful. I'm a big fan of this. And then this deck is the Tarot of the Old Path. And this is a really great deck for witches and pagans. There is a boatload of very specific Wiccan and pagan symbolism in this card. So again, we're seeing a lot of the same imagery repeated here. We have the star crown. We have the symbol for Venus. We have our evergreens in the background. The river flowing in the background. We have fruits and veg, we have grains. She's dressed all in green if we needed more of an emphasis of her connection to the living world and the earth itself. And then she's also surrounded by some really cool animals that are really great. Animal messengers. The hare or the rabbit is a character that we will also see on the Queen of Pentacles, which is sort of like the mundane world version of this same character. We also have a lamb here. Moth. If you look carefully, she's got a pomegranate by her feet. So, and she's suckling a babe. Not too much more symbolism that we can dial in than that. This is the Empress from the Afro-Brazilian Tarot. Also a huge, huge fan of this entire tarot deck. It is gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. And this character, the way that she is depicted, clearly connects her to Yoruba goddesses like Yemeya, to a lesser extent Oshun, but definitely Yemeya with her sacred mirror that she's carrying, all in white. And, you know, she's moving through the cosmos, raised up on this wave, which is basically a depiction of the rhythm of the ocean. So she is literally the embodiment of the rhythm of the natural world, and, you know, is coming to you live in this really, really powerful form. I just love this depiction. I think it's really, really beautiful. And like I said, this entire deck as well is absolutely gorgeous. This is the Afro-Brazilian Tarot, if you didn't hear me the first time. Okay. All right, so let's cruise back a little bit. What is the Empress trying to tell us when it comes up in a reading? I wanted to give you guys, before we got into that part, a good, solid groundwork in all this symbolism that we're seeing and the ways that we might find it in other cards. There is one particular symbol that I didn't talk about, and I didn't talk about it on purpose, because I want to give you guys some homework, and that is that river or stream or waterfall or pool of water that we see in the background of a lot of these different cards. Right? Look, here it is as a waterfall. Here it is again as a stream. She is the water in this depiction. That is your homework, and I'll come back around to that at the end of the class. But your homework is to investigate that body of water. What is the deal with that? Do we see it anywhere else in the tarot? What is water for you in tarot? And what all is happening with water in the major arcana, especially in the cards that are right around the Empress. Okay. So, like I said, I wanted to give you guys a nice solid foundation in all of this symbolism that we see on this card before I got into the interpretation, because now you'll know where I'm coming from when I say the card means XYZ. Okay, so what's up when we get the Empress card in a reading? Well, for one, awesome. Yay, good. I am pretty much always excited when I see the Empress card in the tarot. Pretty much every single time. If I'm doing a reading and the Empress card comes up, 90% of the time the Empress is there to say, take it easy, or here's a reward, or something along those lines. I try not to interpret any card as solely good or solely bad, but this is one of the cards I have a really hard time not being like, you're getting a high five from the universe right now. So that's my bias. I tend to interpret this card almost always as some type of positive. There are hard aspects of this card, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. When this card comes up for me in a reading with a client or for myself, first and foremost, the big message that I'm hearing from the universe is that I need to be more of a mother to myself or to the project or the situation that I'm talking about. Or my motheringness is what is being pointed at or being called out. Generally speaking, what I will say is it's time to focus on nurturing yourself some more. It's time to focus on giving yourself things that are really good and really, really good for you. I will think of the Empress as an incredibly tasty, like really unctuous and well-made pot of stew. It took time. There was a lot of parts. There's a whole bunch of magic that went into that you are not going to see, that doesn't make sense. It had to sit in the crock pot for 8 hours before it got to the flavor that it's at. But it's also really good for you. It's homemade, right? It's got organic veg in it. And, half of this stuff was grown at the pea patch down the street. And, I traded for this bread that we're eating. So it's delicious and it's luxurious. And we are like smacking our lips and licking our fingers the entire time because it's like, hell yes to this physical sensation. This stew is like giving me life right now. But it's also giving you life in that it is nurturing your soul and it's nurturing your emotions. It is a thing that a person put time and energy into for your benefit. It's made out of good, healthy parts for your benefit. And it's made in a way that is holistic, that is considering the entirety of the situation, right? So I make this stew that we're talking about, and I've traded for some of this stuff and I grew some of it myself, and the rest of it I bought from the co-op, but it's all organic. And and I'm using the crock pot, and and I'm allowing myself to cook in a way that is not rushing me, so that I can work on some other things that I need to, or maybe sleep. And then the next day, this beautiful, incredibly delicious meal is waiting for me and my community. And then I take the trimmings from the veg, and some of them I replant, and I start to grow my own onions, and the rest of them I compost, and it turns into soil. And you see what I'm saying? The Empress represents things that are delicious, they are luxurious, they are luscious, they are wonderful, but they are also good for you. And they are good for the environment. They are good for the literal environment of you and your community, your home, your literal environment, but they're also good for the system. They're feeding into the system. Okay. So this is the big thrust behind this card. When this comes up for me, or this comes up for a client in a reading, what I feel like I'm supposed to tell the person is, you need to go to the spa, you need to go get a massage, you need to maybe speak with a nutritionist even. I'm not a doctor, I'm not literally making that call, but I'm throwing that out as a suggestion of like, you need to start engaging in some self-care practices that feel luxurious, and that's great, but are also actually really good for you and healing you and nurturing you too. And a lot of us who are workaholics, I just have this written down, I don't know anything about this, but a lot of us who are workaholics, a lot of us who are rough and tough, a lot of us that might identify as butch or have our butch aspects about us, a lot of us who have grown up in poverty or had to grow up really fast and become adults very quickly in our lifetimes, we eschew a lot of the stuff that the Empress wants us to do. We think to ourselves, no, I'm not going to put lotion on after the shower because that's a waste of time. And who cares anyways? That's frivolous. When in fact, yeah, it makes you feel good. And yeah, it smells nice. And now you're all silky smooth and yummy, yummy. But it's also really good for your skin. We want to trap the moisture in our skin. Like, there's nothing wrong with taking care of ourselves, right? But a lot of us get trained to believe that spending time taking care of ourselves is either a waste of time, or it's a luxury that we can't afford, or it's something that isn't a part of who we're supposed to be in the world, right? I think a lot of folks that have been told that they're men or identify as men think, everything that this person is talking about spas and lotion, that's not me. I'm literally talking about you. Like, I'm especially talking about you. Please put some lotion on for the group. We're saying, please go feel luscious right now. Like, please put on a pink bow, put on some ruffle socks, whatever you need to do. But truly, a lot of us in this world get told that these types of luxuries are outside of our field. They are outside of our purview. They're outside of our world. They're outside of our reach. They are outside of our class. They are outside of our tax bracket, and we are not allowed to have those things. And if we do, we're wasting our money. Especially right now, right? With the economy and the situation that it's in, and so many people out of work, and so many people in precarious financial situations. How dare you spend money on a good perfume? How dare you spend money on an extra moisturizing conditioner for your hair? That is so irresponsible. No, says the Empress. No, that is literally exactly what you need to be doing right now. I need you to be taking care of yourself and enjoying yourself, both. This is an archetype of the physical plane. This is an archetype of the physical body. Let's think. This character relates to Taurus. That's the sign that we're in right now. And Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus, if anybody wants good food and beautiful perfumes and tasty stuff, right? Thank you. So true. Like, if any character in the astro chart wants that stuff. It's Taurus. Taurus is like, it better smell good. It better feel good. I want everything covered in velvet. It better look good, for Christ's sake, or there'll be hell to pay, right? And so this is the ruling planet of that character. And this character, the Empress, is like, no, seriously. Like, it's not just that I like things to be aesthetically pleasing. There's a reason behind this. And it's because in this time of the year, we are fully and truly, you're welcome, Eva. That's what you pay me for. That's why I got to call you out. It's my job. That's what I'm here to do. That's what this is for. You're welcome. Yay, I'm doing it right. Okay. That's what's up with this character. The whole of the physical plane is saying, come back. Come back from the lands of the dead, come back from the winter journey, come back from the underworld work, come back from being just inside your head, come back from being lost in your emotions, come back from being, enraptured with your holy vision of what you could do in the future if only you did it. Come back from all of that and come into here. Come into the physical body, come into the physical plane. And one of the very best and easiest ways to do that is to entice yourself back into your body. Give yourself beautiful things to look at, and beautiful things to smell, and beautiful things to taste, and beautiful things to touch. And beautiful, of course, being completely subjective to the person that's having the experience. In no way, shape, or form are we referring to some sort of objective standard of aesthetics, because why? We're out with all of that BS. Like, no thanks. Nobody has that kind of time. We are talking about things that give you succor. We are talking about things that, yes, Bill, we're talking about things that give you nourishment and that give you life, honey, but that please you. And I mean, I am always encouraging people to do this at this time of year, but especially so in our current conditions, especially so with what is happening in the world. Please enjoy what you have. Please, if there is I said this in the Beltane class, and I'll say it again. If there is a bottle of something special that you have been saving in the house, now is the time. Please enjoy it. Treat yourself. Give yourself the gift of coming back to the physical plane and doing the stuff that's here in the physical world. And so, again, when I see this card come up, I know that I am supposed to be telling myself or encouraging my person that's across from me, come back to your body, come back to the physical plane, treat yourself, but nourish yourself too, right? Like, not to bring in a weird image, but we see that card. We see that one depiction from Tarot of the Old Path where this archetype is actually nursing. She's not nursing Snickers bars, right? She's not nursing beer. Maybe she is, but she's probably nursing mother's milk, which is packed with everything that little creature needs to grow and ultimately become a person out here on the physical plane and do the thing. So I really want to emphasize that whole, coming back to that idea of when we badger ourselves about trying to do something nice for ourselves, but that nice thing is actually something that's really going to be healing for us and really nurturing. But we want to shunt it into the category of, oh, that's just frivolous. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of money. I'm not that person. I don't do those things. I'm not that person. That's not for me. Bitch, there's the curse word. It's for you. It's actually specifically for you. So please, 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 please go put some lotion in your nether bits. Like, please wear something that makes you feel luxurious. Whatever that is for you. Please, please, please do it. That is kind of like the real big thrust with this character. So I'm going to pause there for just a second. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to ask anything about interpretation? Oh, actually, go ahead and ask questions if you need to, but I'm going to talk about where the Empress can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. Or, that's all the good stuff that's coming up when the Empress comes up for me. Is, You deserve this break. Please nurture yourself. Please give yourself succor. I use that word very particularly because it relates to the idea of succulence, and something being very succulent and delicious. But it's also giving you life. It's literally nourishing you and keeping you alive. So succor. Okay, so where is the Empress not super great? All right. To talk about that, I need to speak a little bit to who the Empress is working with. The Empress, for the most part, is working with the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the major arcana card that relates to the sign of Taurus. Remember, Venus is the ruling planet of the sign Taurus, and all these cards relate to something in astrology. So, Venus, the Empress, Hierophant, Taurus, Hierophant. And I have a big old piece about the Hierophant on my website. It can change when it's reversed. I'm going to get to that right now. That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. The Empress relates to the Hierophant. Okay. The Hierophant, I have a big piece about this on my website. Please feel free to read it after class to get more insight on this character because they all do hang out at the same party. The Hierophant has a lot of baggage on it as an archetype that we work with in the world. The Hierophant represents characters like the Pope or characters like a pharaoh or a god king. Leaders that have power that has been bestowed upon them from on high. That they have something about them that is, in a sense, kind of unquestionable because they are related to deity or godness in some way. God source, Godhead, all of that stuff. Cool. Okay. That's the neutral interpretation of the Hierophant. However, we don't live in a neutral environment. We live in this world, in this context, and how we have seen the character of the Hierophant play out is terrible, awful, right? Let's think about the damage that the popes have done over the centuries. Let's think and the Catholic Church in total. Let's think about the damage that Caesars and god kings and tyrants and dictators and monarchs have done over the centuries, like plenty, if not over the millennia, truly. And so while the Hierophant archetype itself is totally neutral, how we see it manifested in the world can be pretty funky and has been pretty funky for a few thousand years. Side note, time's up, but well, that's a different class. So the Hierophant card or character we could think of as having two people in its council. And one of the people is the Empress. That's one of the Hierophant's council people is the Empress and the information that the Empress has to provide. And the other character, oddly enough, is the High Priestess. The reason for that, this is some slightly more abstract astrology, so if this doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. But the moon, the planet, quote unquote, the moon, is related to the card, the High Priestess. And the moon is exalted in Taurus. When the moon is in Taurus, it's super potent, it's really dialed in, etc., etc. So we could say that the Hierophant has in its council the Empress and the High Priestess. And I have another class about the High Priestess coming up over the summer. So join me for that when we're in Cancer season, in fact. But the High Priestess can be a bit secretive about some things. And the Empress can be very laid back about stuff. The Hierophant kind of takes this and combines it and turns it into, don't question me, just do what I tell you to do. So the Hierophant can become really dogmatic about things. And I always imagine it as the gardener that goes out into the garden and yells at the tomatoes to grow faster, to grow a different way. Why are you growing 7 tomatoes? I told you I wanted 10. It's like, and it's totally ridiculous, right? And yet emperors and dictators and presidents, god kings and other people that fall into this archetypal seat get into that place where they think that they literally can yell at the natural order and tell it what to do. And the Empress is like, no, 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 no. That's not how you grow tomatoes. Stop, please. Get out of my goddamn garden. The Empress has this attitude of let's just lay back and relax and allow the tomatoes to grow themselves. And that is a little bit of the gift of or a lot of the gift really of the Empress, going back to that cyclical thing and that awareness of time and rhythm. It's like, I'm not yelling at the tomatoes. It's not time for them to have 10 tomatoes. They're only at the 7 level. 6 weeks from now, there'll be 10. And then 6 weeks after that, there's going to be 25 tomatoes. You think you want tomatoes, bitch? We'll test that. We're going to have tomatoes, but in its time. So one of the pitfalls or one of the hard parts of the Empress is that the Empress is not really concerned about making sure results happen today, because they know that results are going to happen eventually. The tomatoes are going to grow. It's going to happen. And so we can adopt an attitude in the Empress sometimes of, I'm just going to lounge. I'm just going to sit back and relax and let this situation play itself out. I'll water the tomatoes later. It'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. And if anything, the Empress, and I wouldn't necessarily say that this is reversed, but I'll talk about that in just a second. If there's a hard element or a pitfall or a shortcoming or however we want to, whatever our phraseology is here around that for the Empress, it would be a lack of drive, a lack of organization, a lack of, kind of a lack of willpower. We feel very luscious and very luxurious in the Empress, and we want that to go on forever and ever and ever. And where the Hierophant wants to be really dogmatic and like drive their plans forward and make this thing happen, the Empress is like, calm down, relax, it'll happen, it's gonna figure itself out. And sometimes that's the truth. Sometimes what we do need to do is relax, get out of the way, and let the frickin' tomatoes grow themselves, right? This is a process that I cannot affect and I should not be interfering in. But sometimes we need to make sure that there's a little water. We need to make sure that the tomatoes have the structure and the support that they need as they get taller, right? We do have to attend to the situation. So it's about finding a little bit of a balance between the dogmatic, like overly control, freaked out elements of the Hierophant in Taurus. Sorry, Taurians, but calm down. Again, on the outside, very calm, but inside it's like, I have my machinations. This will fall to my fist. We know. But the Empress is the opposite of that. The Empress is like, it'll all figure itself out. It's totally fine. Here, put on this caftan and drink this, and we'll talk about it in a few hours. Let's get takeout. We'll figure it out. It's fine. So if there's anything that's kind of a pitfall of the Empress, it is that we might even use the word lazy, but they can be very unstructured and they can be very relaxed about their approach to things, at times too relaxed. Okay, now let me address your question specifically, reversed versus upright. I have a slightly different interpretation of how I work with upright versus reversed than a lot of folks in the world. But this is not original to me. I don't remember where I picked it up, but I definitely learned this from another tarot interpreter. And I was like, I like this. I'm going to work with it. It's really stuck for me. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be the author Gail Fairfield, who wrote a book called Choice-Centered Tarot. I think that's out of print. I think it's called Everyday Tarot now. Look up Choice-Centered Tarot and it'll probably link you to whatever the new title of the book is. I think the book is identical inside. I think it just has a new title. Gail Fairfield. Excellent. I'm pretty sure this is who I learned this from. And the idea for me is that when a card is upright, it's happening out here in the conscious realms. It's happening in the physical world where other people can see it. It's on my t-shirt. I'm talking about it on Facebook. I'm thinking about it. My people know about it. Maybe not everybody in the whole wide world knows about it, but like my general friends or my family, the people that I talk to, I'm talking to them. So it's out here, or I'm consciously aware of it. Like it's not something that's, bubbling up from within. Like I get this. I'm thinking about it. I understand it. Versus inverted, When I see a card upside down, I think this process is happening for this person internally. So this is about what they're thinking, but really about what they're feeling. Maybe they're not even consciously aware of it. Maybe this is something that's coming up from the unconscious. Maybe this is presenting itself in dreams, or it's presenting itself in like really weird synchronicities, or um and they maybe are consciously aware of it, but they are being very private about it. Maybe they're not talking to anyone, or they're only talking to a few people. Another way I'll interpret this is that whatever this action is, it's happening behind closed doors versus out in the streets. Upright would be out here in front of lots of people. Inverted would be, this is happening and I'm consciously aware of it, but I'm doing it by myself. I'm doing it privately. Only one other person knows about this, that kind of thing. So to get the Empress upright for me would be, you literally in the physical world need to be doing these things. You might rope in some friends, which right now obviously would be a little bit difficult, but at the very least, if you are quarantined with other people, you might say, hey, let's spend a day cooking food in the kitchen. That's a very like overly simplified manifestation of this as upright, versus if I got the Empress inverted and I'm quarantining with other people, maybe I say to them at some point, hey, at 11 o'clock tonight after you guys go to bed, I think I'm going to take over the bathroom and like do a private spa night for myself. Is that okay? Is that okay for everybody if I take over the bathroom for a couple of hours and do this private thing? I'm still talking about it, but I'm engaging in the activity privately. This is me. This is for me. Nobody else is going to be here. And it's for me. And so those are very oversimplified ways of interpreting this card as an upright versus an inverted. I hope that answers the question. If not, too bad. No, say something in chat. Okay. So, let's move to this. Bum, 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 bum. I created a spread for you guys to be able to work with this card if you wanted to. And I feel like this is a really great way of getting a sense of what it is that we're trying to do with the energy of... Cool. Yay. Awesome. I feel like this is a way of us trying to get in touch with the energy that's coming through the Empress, which is ultimately about being fertile and creating a spot within us, within our lives, within ourselves, psychologically, emotionally, physically, whatever, wherein we're going to have a project occur, wherein we're going to have a thing happen. So, in this, I'm encouraging doing a circle kind of 7 cards. It's sort of a weird pattern. Really, honestly, you could lay them down in any order that you wanted to, but these are the ways that I thought would be cool to interpret. So let's talk about that. I'm going to flash back and forth a little bit. So the first card would be the rake. And I'm literally thinking like, we've got to go out. We're going out to the garden. Like I said, whether that is psychologically or spiritually or emotionally or physically, we are going to the place in our life wherein we are about to have a project happen. And the first question that we're asking ourselves is, what needs clearing? That's the rake. So let me get the rake out. What needs clearing? What needs to be cleared before growth? Take a close look at the garden. Is it ready for a project? So with this first card, we're asking, before I even get this project started, what's in my way? What's something that I need to deal with first? And again, if we want to go to a very mundane image, I've gone out to my backyard and I've decided I'm going to put in a bed where I'm going to grow some stuff, and some branches have fallen from trees, right? Or maybe there's an old wheelbarrow there, or maybe there's an old gnarly bush there, right? But this was where I was going to do my garden. So this first card is asking, like, what do I need to get out of my way first before I even begin this project? Is there anything that's in my way? Second card, compost, gross blessings, or the shit. All right, there's another curse word. Sorry, everybody. What seems hard or weird that might be a gift? What underworld creepy crawlies are here to help? And so in this second card, what we're really asking ourselves is, what's already here in the mix of stuff that I don't need to literally just get rid of, but I need to transform? Or is something that seems like it's in the way, that seems like it's a problem, that's actually a blessing, but it just be but like kind of, gross or kind of weird or uncomfortable to deal with. That's what this second card is all about. Compost, gross blessings. Makes me think of worms, worms crawling around in the dirt. What stuff is here that's actually like freaking me out a little bit, but is actually here to help? All right. Third card in this reading, the trellis. Structure issues, earth, planning, and grounding work. So this third card is for you to kind of reflect on what structure does this thing need? What is something that I've got my project, I've got my ultimate goal that I would like to reach, I've got my thing that I'm trying to produce or trying to accomplish or get done, whatever it is. And so first we're looking at what's in my way that I need to get out of the way. Second is, what's something that I think I'm supposed to be getting rid of, but I actually should try to find a way to integrate it because it's going to really help me. Third thing is, what kind of structure, what kind of support does this project need? What planning? What thing am I missing in my plan? What thing am I missing in my blueprint that's going to be needed here? That is what we are doing with that third card. Trellis, structure issues, planning and grounding work. And I also put grounding here because in these moments, we can get real wound up and real excited over the idea of the project. We can get real excited with the pulling all the parts together to do the thing. We can get real excited with the end result that eventually is going to show up. And so much so that we can really become distracted from the actual granular mechanical parts of doing the thing. So this third card that's also suggesting grounding stuff is, this card may point to things that might become types of distractions, or it could also point to a technique or a tool that's going to help keep you here and grounded and calm and focused on the project going forward. So you have a few different ways that you can interpret that. The trellis. What is the trellis here for? It's here to help the plant grow, right? We can think of like trellis for tomatoes or trellis for our sweet peas that we're growing or whatever it is. And we kind of have to think about those things before the plant ever starts growing. So what extra planning does this project need, and or what things might become like slight distractions for you that you need to find a way to kind of tamp down and let go of some of the distracted excitement around that to be able to go forward. Okay, next card. 4, irrigation. Boom. Emotional work. Right? So we have raked out the stuff that was in the way. We have taken a second look at some of the things that we thought we were supposed to kick out, but we've actually found a way to incorporate them. We have put in some structures and some planning in place. We've incorporated some grounding and some container work. That's another way that we could look at 3 is the container that all this stuff is going to go into. And 4 is irrigation. What is the emotional work that we are doing here? What is thirsty? And where do you need support? So in the third card, we're asking what support, what planning, what blueprint stuff does the project need? But in this card, we're asking, what do I need? What emotional support am I going to need? Where am I going to feel thirsty? Where might I want some attention? Where might I want a little recognition? And where would it be good for me to reach out to people and say, I don't necessarily need you to physically help me with this, but can you emotionally support me while I work through this? That's what's up with that card. That's the conversation that we're having in that card. And then the fifth card is pollen. Support from our community. Air. This is the ideas and the feedback that we're getting from our people in our community. What do other people have to say about it? What inspiration might they be bringing in? This could be a card where we are also asking for help of like, I've gone this far, but I don't know where else to go. But when I turn to community, or should I turn to community? Can I turn to community? What kind of pollen is going to come through? What kind of ideas? What kind of inspiration? Where should I be opening myself up to inspiration from the outside to sort of pollinate this idea that I've got a brewing? And then 6 is the sun. How do you stay passionate? How do you stay driven? How do you stay focused on this project? Because as we all know, there are definitely times in a project where we begin to flag a bit, where we begin to lose our steam, we lose our motivation, we get frustrated, we get scared, we get intimidated, we get confused, we get bogged down, we get bored, right? Legitimate. Very bored and very legitimate. And so the sun is a card that is asking or opening up where, how do I stay passionate? How do I stay connected to this project? How do I stay heart-centric with this project? Do I need to bring other people in? Do I need to go back to my roots and kind of, remember why I'm here in the first place? Like, what is that? So that card is there to have that conversation of like, why am I here? What is this all about? And then the last card is the Blossom, a gift of the work. That's the card that goes at the very center. And in theory, you could put a bunch of cards here. This could be a place where you launch off and begin to have a conversation with tarot. But what we're really asking is, what's a benefit of me doing this work that maybe I can't see from this side, where I'm still just standing in my backyard and there's some rusty wheelbarrow and like a big giant branch that fell down and this is really gross and I don't know what's under that rock, but I am not excited to find out. When I'm still in that place of like, so I'm doing this project? Really? Who thought this was a good idea? This 7th card is showing you this is one of the benefits of doing this work. One of the boons, or one of the gifts, one of the surprises that's going to come from doing this work. And so I really wanted to just invent this as an opportunity, or an opportunity to give you a little bit of a trellis, a little bit of a blueprint to create an explorative conversation with yourself around the idea of fertility, fecundity. What is it to become ready? What is it to become yearning? What is it to become moist and fertile and waiting? And again, like we said before, this is not a passive waiting. This is an active, creative, burbling, bubbling, creeping and crawling and churning and unfurling energy, right? Anybody that lives with houseplants, it looks like those plants are not moving, and every single day they have changed. We know they're moving. What is it to be something that moves outside of the false time structures that we're given currently and find your organic rhythm? What is it to be in a state where you witness your process rather than dictate your process? What is it to be nurtured and nurturing? What is it to pull something into your lap and take care of it? Or allow yourself to be pulled into a lap and taken care of? What is that? So that's a lot of the work that we're doing with the Empress. That's a lot of the work that we're doing in this season for Beltane. And I think that might be it for the class. If anybody has any questions, I'm definitely not, I'm here. Please ask. Um, this was really fun. I love doing this. I'm like really having a good time doing these live stream classes. I'm really enjoying myself. Um, if you enjoyed this class and you have the capacity to, please donate. These classes are normally $15 a piece. I have patrons that subscribe at a higher level to have access to these classes. And for the last 2 months, I've just made everything free. Donation, pay what you can, because this is the help that I can offer. This is the service that I can provide to my community, both tiny and large. And you know, as we go through this all collectively, this wild, wild time of being here on the earth. And so I also have profound thanks and profound appreciation and love for my patrons and my one-on-one students who have invested in this work so that I have been able to offer it for free to everybody over the last 2 months. So y'all go thank them too. Yay, I'm so glad that you guys love this spread. I have tried to do these a couple of times before, and I always feel like I don't quite get it right, and I was actually really stoked on this. Patrons, I will upload, actually patrons and all of my one-on-one students, people that have paid for student work this year, you will either get a post on Patreon or you will get an email tonight at some point with at least the spreads, if not a link to the Dropbox with this video and the spreads and whatever. But yeah, if you've been moved by this, there is a link below in the description to throw a donation my way, which I highly appreciate, but is absolutely not required, especially if that is not within your economy, and that is so real right now. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me and joining us. This has been really fantastic. And I am very excited for you to grow, to unfurl, to get wet and be moist and connective and have your roots spread out in this dark soil, and to have nice creepy crawlies crawling through your flesh and and eating you and composting you and turning you into something rich and dark and beautiful, that is fecund and ready and waiting for whatever this incredible project is that you are about to produce out here in the world. I am waiting and I am excited, and we all are excited. We collectively are doulas right now. We collectively are midwives to the new world that is being born. We are also the pregnant mamas that are birthing this world. Again, regardless of gender, we are all pushing this baby out from whatever it is that is between your legs. We are all pushing this baby out right now. And it's hard and it's frustrating and it feels like, it feels frightening, I think, for some of us. And so know that we are also all here with each other, breathing together and sweating together and chanting together and praying together and lighting our incense and lighting our candles and smelling our flowers and touching our bodies and being here in this process. We are all doing it together. So if you're feeling super alienated and super alone right now, you're not. I mean, you are, but you're not. It's totally legitimate. And also, we are all here in this big messy pile of dirt and leaves together. So thank you so much, guys. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful spring. As I said, if you can donate, info is down below. Very appreciative of that. And Patreons and students info will be coming either tonight or tomorrow with your links and what have you. Thank you so much. Mwah. Goodbye and good night. Blessed be. Oh, let's keep it hashtag healthy, lusty, thrusty. Because that's how we do it in 2020. Mwah. Bye, guys. Bum, bum, bum. Bum.